living is easy. What a contrast from last week's video, which was filmed in March. It's absolutely boiling hot now. Anyway, this is Trev's blog. Welcome to my blog, where thrills are cheap and love is divine. What I'm going to be talking about in this video is pie cuts. Not the type of pie you eat. Also going to go back in time, right before I made that repair section for that Morris top. I'm going to make it all again, using shrinking this time as the methods. Hope you enjoy the video. Let's go back and have a real good look at the wing again. So this is the two-stage repair section that I've already made. So this was just basically stretched in the center and then forced around something that was curved. To put it into real crude terms, because that's all we really need to use is crude terms. So the center has been stretched and the perimeter of the panel pretty much remains as it was on the sheet, albeit curved, as in it's not been stretched or shrank around the edge. During that two-stage video, I also made just a stage 2 panel. So this has been literally just forced around something that was curved, which means that the panel replicates the curvature of the wing very well in this direction, but it's completely wrong in this direction because it's not curved at all. It's just been forced around something that was curved, so it still remains absolutely dead flat all the way around, whereas this wing certainly isn't, and I can demonstrate that by just pressing it on the edge, and you can see how much that's rising up if I just rock it from side to side. You look at that difference there. What I can show you actually is I will put the other repair section in the center, put the repair section inside that's already the right shape. We can compare the difference. If I hold it at the back, you can see how far away that is. It needs to be massively curved to fit the wing. But what I'm going to do in this video is not just replicate the video again by just stretching the center of this. I'm actually going to shrink the perimeter of the panel to replicate the curve. A legitimate question that's always being put to me, particularly on these kinds of repairs, is, Trev, why don't you just put pie cuts in your panels to make them fit better? So what they're basically saying is, why don't you just cut the panel from there and there, and then remove this little section, put the two pieces together so that it just closes this up, and then weld it up. Well, that's all very well and good, but now you've got a great big weld all the way down there that you've got to try and work out. The other thing as well is you haven't even touched the surface of how many pie cuts you would have to put along this edge to make it a nice incremental curve. So if you just put one in there, you may actually drop both these ends down, which is the goal, is to make it the same shape as the wing, because the wing is obviously shaped in that direction. What you'd end up with is a big high spot there, and then the panel would be essentially flat still there and there, and it needs to be curved all the way along. So you'd in fact end up having to put pie cuts all the way along, maybe even more than that. To achieve that, you just have a mass of welded joints and a huge mess. By the time you'd ironed out all those welds and heat distortion and high spots and everything else, you'd be in a right old pickle. And the pie cut wouldn't actually be straight lines either. It would be more like, just out of interest, it would be more like, to make it fit nicely, the pie cut would probably have a curved edge, so it would come out like that. And that's how the pie cuts will probably have to be made to replicate that curve, to make it sort of incremental as well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce this panel right down to the same shape as the one that we've already made. So I'm going to get rid of our allowance. Talked about allowance in the last video. when you're shrinking something, you don't need loads of allowance, because I'll show you why. So if I draw a line like this, so this is where I'm going to cut the panel off. If you look now here at the width of this pie cut, where the panel ends, so the panel ends there currently, so you can see the width of that pie cut compared to the width of the pie cut on the edge of the template, and it's probably about half, isn't it? Well, the problem is, when I'm shrinking this, it means that I've got to shrink that distance all the way down to close the gap on the true edge of the repair patch. With the allowance removed first, I only have to shrink what I absolutely have to, which is way less than leaving this untrimmed. Remember, when you're shrinking something, you're moving the whole thing in like that. The things I'm going to do before I cut this out, just to prove that it's dead flat right now, put a straight edge along it so you can see it's flat. Also, this is the front edge of the wing, and the template looks pretty symmetrical. So once I've cut this out, I have no way of knowing quickly which end is the front end. So what I'm going to do is put an arrow here. There we go, all trimmed to size with the arrow indicating that that is the front of the wing, because it would be really easy to start shaping it and I'll have it run the wrong way, go over to the shrinker stretcher and then put the shrinks in the wrong place. So that's just a foolproof way, making sure that you've got it run the right way when it's not fairly obvious. I mean, this is quite symmetrical, isn't it? So if I offer this up to the wing, the fit is absolutely horrendous as it is. And going on about shaping it, I will need to put more shape in this front edge, because the wing is curved here but a lot flatter than it is here, and it actually gets progressively more curved as it goes to the front, even round the top section. So I may end up having to put a few shrinks around here as well, but mostly I'll be shrinking it down the sides. I don't think I'm going to have to shrink anything at all around this back edge. After making the last video, I realised I neglected to say how the shrinker stretcher works. I really should have given you a quick overview on that. Also, somebody brought to my attention that I'm using it incorrectly. They've said that these jaws are aligned, and this is something I'm really pleased they pointed out, because this is something else I should have pointed out. The fact that I'm filming at a 45-degree angle so that I'm not in the way of the camera, I have to film it at this angle and from an elevated position. It makes it look like these are actually lined up, whereas in fact they are actually mounted offset. If you put them in so they line up, you're using the machine incorrectly. So thanks very much for pointing that out. A real quick explanation how these shrinking jaws work is that as you put the pedal down, the jaws come together, the teeth grip the material, and then the jaws, because they're sprung loaded and there's wedges inside, actually compress. See it gripping and then pushing it together. And that's how the shrinking jaws work. The stretching jaws are very much the same looking thing. The stretching jaws work the opposite way round. So as I put the jaws together, it pinches the metal up, and then you'll see them spread as the pressure goes on. So they're now spreading, you see. Real simple way it works. To start with, I'm just going to put some shrinks along both edges. And I'm only going to go very light, and I'm only going to stay on the edge. The key to this is going gently. It's easier to get it right at the start than to have to try and rectify, swap over to stretching dies and start stretching it afterwards. You'll see what I mean as we go along. So along the edge first, lightly has it. And then when I've done both edges, the first thing I'm going to do is offer it straight up to the wing just to see if things have improved, and just keep on making incremental adjustments as I go. So this is the first run. I'll probably step it in probably only 2 or 3 times on this. It will actually go in a long way. I'll show you what I mean. So if I was to utilise full distance, I could go right to the centre if I really needed to. Back over to the panel. First things first, always check as you go along and just keep on checking. You wouldn't believe how little you have to do sometimes to make such a huge difference. And already, I would say just those few have probably, it's actually closed the panel in a little bit, so I'll just stretch her back out. I've gone too far. So yeah, there's a slight gap at the back, and I can only just get my finger under there, and I could have got my whole hand underneath before. So just those few shrinks have already made massive difference there. I'll back over, do a few more shrinks, very lightly, maybe step it in one more time next time round. And also, because, as I said, there's a lot of shape going that way, so this is quite bulbous in this area. And a few shrinks around this area will also sort of bring that down there, but definitely not at the back. Don't think I need anything. And I've also realised that this edge along here, there's a section from about there to there that's flat, and I probably won't need to do much work at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark that off with a Sharpie just to say keep away from this area, or certainly don't go too hard in this area. Right, let's have a real good look at this. Hopefully you can see it on the camera. If I tip the panel button, that's just catching the light now. You can see there's like a high spot all the way along there, right on the edge of where the jaws pulled the metal in. The reason you've got that high spot is because there's less distance along here now. That's pulled in, so that's got nowhere to go, so it's popping up. What I need to do is progressively shrink it up the panel. Also, the panel now feels like it's got a bit of a flat spot in the middle. What I need to do, as I sort of alluded to say, was that as we go up with the jaws, we move the high into the middle where it needs to be, bring the sides around, then it'll give that nice flowing shape. So what I'm going to do now is step the jaws in more. I want to be a bit careful, as I said, about this, because this is particularly flat in this area. But I may just have to pull it around anyway with the jaws, and then put a nice flat dolly across it, planish this out flat afterwards just to get a flat edge where it goes in to that edge of that wing. Because although I pull it round, I can still pull it round, and then I can still flatten this out, and I can move the roundedness up into the centre, because it needs to be more rounded here. And as I move that up, we should be able to get that roundedness into this area. First thing I'm going to do is step it in one and get rid of the high spot. Just shrink the high spot down. This is just taking that little high peak out, moving the high peak more towards the centre. And each job like this would be totally upon its own merit. You know, you may have wanted a high spot there, so you just have to adjust for each job that you do. So I've just taken it in one, and then what I can do when I finish this row is I can just start again from the bottom, keep working my way up. So again, around the edge, I'm not going mad, I'm only putting very light pressure actually on the pedal. So I don't think this will need a huge amount. And I step it in one. And one more again, to bring it more into the centre. I definitely think we're going to need something around here. Let's just give it a little bit. Going to need a bit of hammer and dolly, that is, just to square that up a little bit. Certainly building some curve into it now. Let's go over to the wing, have another look. I feel like I've flattened it out too much now, because I've come up, it's definitely cancelled out what I put along the edge. So what I'm going to do is give it a bit more along each edge to try and bring it back round again, but we're getting this centre line better now. It's sitting nicely now on that centre, but the sides just need to come round here. And we've still got quite a gap, but as you see when I put the flat edge along it, we are bringing it round. So a little bit more of the same again, perhaps just focus more on the edge. Certainly improving with each go, but I am still losing some shape around here. I think I do need to try building more curvature in this, which means shrinking that edge harder again. This back edge isn't too bad actually. I think if I just literally put that down, something solid, don't want to push that in, give it some palm across there, that'll just bring that over a little bit. Certainly brought that round, that's sitting much tighter to there, so I definitely got a winner with that one. Need to just draw some more out of that there. I think I'll be alright along this side at the moment. I need to put a few more shrinks in around here as well, so I get some more shrink going on there, same again down there. I think I'm getting somewhere now. Getting very close now, so what I'm going to do now is just give this a little bit of manipulation on the bench. Give that some pressure on there. That'll bring that round. Just give this side a tiny bit. Getting really quite close now. What I feel, or certainly what I observe anyway, is that the centre line is still too flat and it's bottoming out. I think I've actually shrank the sides enough. I don't want to over shrink the sides, because if I start doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up with a gap in the centre because it's going to come round too far. So what I intend to do is shrink again along the sides, but not over shrink it, and then move that shrink up into the centre line more. I certainly need a little bit more around the front as well. So just take it up into there. This front also, I think this needs a bit more shrinking around here. I'm just going to give that a bit more shrink along that edge. Particularly this front corner seems to be off the ground a bit. I'm going to give that a bit more round there. And around this front edge. And just bring it in to around about there. That's it. Better. I'll tell you what, that's not far off now. Really very close. Just going to that edge there. See, I've had a problem with this side here. I brought that round. I reckon that there and that there. Now this area here has been plain ball all along. Now everything else is fitting really well and this bit isn't. But I reckon it's only going to want a little tickle on this corner. Just to bring that down. Oh, now we are cooking on gas. Without a doubt, that's there. That is definitely there. There we go, all fitting nice and flush, no edges sticking up. That's the key, you want to get it flush all the way around with no edges sticking up anywhere at all, and it lies on there under its own weight. I haven't had to put anything on it to pinch it down to close up any gaps. That's the real key. So it could use a bit of a tidy up. It's got a bit of marring on it from the teeth marks. And what I would probably do now, if I was to weld this in, I'll probably just go around with the panel hammer dolly and the beating spoon just to smooth that out a little bit, and then give it a bit of a grind around, bit of a polish up before I welded that in. But I wouldn't go too mad, because you could always metal finish this afterwards once you got it welded in, and that's come out really well. Happy with that. For the people that wanted to know about removing the shrinking marks, because that deep throat shrinker I've got did leave some pretty bad marks. Can they be removed? Hopefully this answers your question. And for the people that are going to say, wow, you've removed a lot of the material from the outside edge, very, very true. Don't forget, we've shrank it down, so this will have increased in thickness after it's been shrank. Okay, yeah, I've removed quite a bit of surface steel to remove the marks and polish it up, but obviously you've got to be a bit sensible about this kind of thing. I've said many times in the past, it's pointless to relentlessly polish a piece of metal that you're going to paint. I don't mind leaving a few marks in it myself and putting a bit of filler in a few things. Modern fillers don't shrink like they used to, and modern paint products are pretty good at hiding a multitude of sins and not shrinking either. So hopefully this just goes to kind of show what you can achieve. Perhaps I'll just measure with my caliper the thickness of the material around here and up here where it hasn't been shrunk. So in the unworked area, what did we start off with? 0.80. This is 20 gauge steel, would expect it to be 0.90, but for where I got this piece of steel from anyway. Let's see what it is here. Right, 0.87. 0.83, 0.80, so there we have it. I shrank it down, it gained thickness, I've polished it up and I've got rid of that extra thickness we had gained. If this was a pressed steel panel and I cut it open where there was some detail, I expect it to be very much thinner than that on the detailed area. Now if I'd stretched this with my stretcher, I would have made it thinner, and then if I polished it I would have made it thinner again, you see. So you've got to kind of keep your mind on what you're doing really. So let's change up to something else. Another question that's asked all the time, and if you've ever pondered this question, I think you are on the correct wavelength. So let's put a big dent in this and I'll discuss what other people are. Well, thanks very much for watching, and as always, I really do hope you got something from that. Next week's video I'm going to be talking about welding cast steel to mild steel, doing a bit of a demonstration on that because that's what I had to do the other week. Also going to discuss the Bedford CA van, a bit of an update on that, how are things going, and there's going to be a bit of an absence I think from Trev for a little while after that because I'm a bit tied up, but I will certainly be returning with some more metal shaping mayhem.